Hello, good evening, folks. Here we are. Perfect. All right, go. Welcome to the weekly Army List show. How's everybody? I need to move chat because I can't fucking see it at the moment. 1 second. Here it is. All right, who's hanging out tonight? Good evening, Mark. Good evening, Jimmy. Good evening, Mike. Gav. Why are you here, Gav? Good evening. You trying to get inside information on Blood Angels? You already know how to beat us. Nathan's here. Zardo's here. Exo's here. Good evening, Jim. Inks, what's happening? Dark Ginger. Steve West. Nick. Lots of people here. Good night. Alright, cool. Army lists. It's a Sunday night. That's what we do on every Sunday night. I feel like it's the Pinky in the Brain saying, isn't it? What do we do tonight, Pinky? The same thing we do every night. We try and take over the world. You guys can hear me okay, right? I'm just looking at my OBS and... oh, right, there was delay. There we go. Ink's coming in with a gifted sub straight away. Thanks, Inks. Podger, good evening. Yeah, we try and take over the galaxy, I guess, right? Every Sunday with Blood Angels Army List. Cool. That's fitting, Inks, because we've got your list here as one of the first lists we're going to look at tonight. Cool. Okay. Let's see if... I think we did your list like just a few weeks ago, Link. So let's talk and let's see what we've got. We've got Dante as the Warlord. And this is a battalion with starting on 4 CP. I guess Dante lets you start a little bit higher in CP. The more I think about it, the more I want to take this Inquisitor, the 60-point Inquisitor that gives like 2 ways of regenerating CP. But Dante is good, I guess, in terms of like he does regenerate a bit of CP. We've got Lamartas with Canticle of Hate and Litany of Faith. I kind of like it. I feel a little bit sad that you don't have Mantra of Strength on Lamartas, because I think Mantra of Strength gives him quite a lot of damage output, I guess. But I mean, I can understand why. I guess you take Dante because he's the Warlord and you want him to give you 1 CP. Is getting 1 CP from Dante more valuable than getting Soul Warden from Lamartas? I mean, I feel like that's a bit of a... It's a tough question. Against certain armies, I would say 1 CP is less valuable than 5 up against mortals in an aura. I guess you have Litany of Faith there, so you can cast it, but I mean, Litany of Faith generally feels unreliable. Try and think, use your words. Litanies are unreliable. I feel like you never, like, I never pay 2 CP to cast Litanies. I mean, even if I had a Wise Orator, I feel like I probably wouldn't pay 1 CP to cast Litanies, so I guess, like... Litany of Faith seems like a strange one to me, because it's like you would want if you're up against an army that does a ton of mortals, you're going to want your mortal protection to be reliable, and I guess that's why a lot of people pick Soul Warden, but I mean, I guess Litany of Faith is okay. You got the Priest with Rites of War and Armor Indomitus, and I think this is a decent loadout for the Priest. You get the jump back in there as well. So you can move around and give out Rites of War, etc. So all that's fine. We get 2 squads of Infiltrators and 1 squad of Assault Intercessors. Part of me wants to tell you to... Excuse me. Part of me wants to tell you to try the... Incursors with a mine for 5 points cheaper than Infiltrators, but I mean, I guess if you're playing a lot of demons and stuff, maybe you want Infiltrators. Some people feel really strongly about Infiltrators. I haven't run them in a long time. I don't mind them. I just hate the fact that they're 120 points. We've got a big squad of Centurions with Flamers and Hurricane Bolters. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Centurion, 65 points a model, give or take. You got 1 with assault launchers, so you can use the strat if you need to. Looks all good. You've got 2 company veterans with chainswords and lightning claws. Again, fine. Not entirely sure what this unit's going to perform. Maybe they're going to do like relentless assault, or maybe they're going to hold an objective. I don't think they can do much more than that. we've got Death Company, and I imagine this is going to be 4 Thunderhammers. Yep, and we've got another Death Company, and that's going to be 4 Thunderhammers. And then we've got a 7-man Death Company with just bolt pistols and chainswords. So basically 3 Death Company. I like how cheap this 7-man Death Company is, actually. Bolt pistols and chainswords. These Death Company do not have jump packs, these ones here. So these are going in reserve or foot slogging. Oh, they're going in a drop pod, looks like. So yeah, okay, so Death Company and the veterans are probably in a drop pod to do Relentless Assault. We've got 7 Sandguard with 4 Infernal Pistols. Seems like a lot, but I mean, that's fine. We've got Devastator squads with Grav Cannons and Multi-Meltas. Again, that's probably fine. I was going to say, maybe the Devastator squad's going in the drop pod. Interesting. You've got the Deathwing launcher in the drop pod. I forget the stats on a Deathwing launcher. I don't think it's much better than a Stormbolter. Arguably, though, like, people tend to use, at least in my experience, people tend to use drop pods. Oh, for God's sake. People, come on, website, don't mess with me. People tend to use drop pods as, like, you know, they can charge into the drop pod, and then obviously you can't shoot them, and they can leave the turn, or they can be in combat. You can sort of use them as, like, I was going to say, you can use them, like, I played against Andrew's Iron Hands, and he put down a drop pod in the middle of the map. So I moved forward, charged the drop pod with a unit that I didn't think it was going to quite kill the drop pod. So then I don't kill the drop pod in my turn. It doesn't really fight back, of course, because it's a drop pod. Then you kill it in his turn and get extra movement out of it. Slingshot, says Gav. Yeah, that's exactly what people would do. So, I mean, I'd probably just put the Stormbolter on it, because at some point, some people are going to charge it, and then if you've got the Death Wind launcher... I mean, it just feels like, well, D6 is shit anyway, for a number of shots. And then the Stormbolter will get double shots if they're within half range, so arguably if you have to shoot in combat, you would get 4 shots, so I would just take the Stormbolter. But it's such a minor... the drop pod does no damage anyway, right? Oh, you actually asked, is the Deathwing launcher light worth it? No. Neither are good though, right? So this is a Death Company focus list. It's going to get them in there and trade and die evenly, all which nets me points. Lamartas was added over the Chief Librarian. I do like Lamartas a lot, actually. What I dislike is having no denies. It means if you come up against like Eldar or something, they're just going to cast all the powers and you just have to deal with it. And obviously you're not going to be able to deny interrogation or anything like that. I kind of hate that. So that's... I mean, that's kind of why I was running like a librarian for a long time. But I guess like if you're not going to run a librarian, Lamartas is a good character. Could you give a cherub to the Devastators? You 100% should have a cherub on the Devastator squad. Yes, it's only 5 points. What would you drop? Well, you could make one of those infiltrator squads, the incursors with the mine. I'm thinking of throwing in a cheap Inquisitor into my list. 60-point Inquisitor. Mainly to bring in a deny, but also to bring a way of generating some CP, because there's a Warlord trait that basically can probably generate you like 4 or 5 CP a game. The Centurion's got the middle to hold and deny the center. Obviously, you probably sent the Priest with them. The drop pod has the Devastators. Hopefully, I'll get them a good spot to maximize damage, which is interesting. I really thought you were going to have the Death Company and the Company Veterans in the drop pod. This really limits my Sanguine Guard. I load them up with Infernal Pistols because I figure a Lone Man 7 squad, they're a target anyway. Maybe deep strike them, not sure. I mean, if you're deep striking them, I feel reluctant to load them up with Infernal Pistols, because the chances when you come in from deep strike, you're not going to be able to fire any of your Infernal Pistols, and then it's sort of 50-50 whether they can make the charge, you know, like an 8-inch charge with a reroll. So when I put Death Company in, when I put Sandguard in reserve, I don't put Infernal Pistols on the squad that's in reserve. I start Infernal Pistols on the squad that's on the board. But yeah, you would need to be cagey with them because one squad of Sangard alone is... They will be a target. They always are a target. I mean, I guess in this case you do have another like giant squad of Centurions which will be a target, so maybe that's not a big deal. Assassination is what keeps me getting Inquisitors into my list. The thing about Assassination, though, is like Blood Angels do move pretty quickly. So, you know, if you advance a jump pack model, it's a minimum of what, a 13-inch move, a maximum of a 19-inch move. If it gets to the end of the game and you've got a couple of characters left and they pick Assassinate, it's very easy to run them away. Same if you've got a captain on a bike, which is what I like to move. You know, like he advances 20 inches. So if they're trying to kill your captain on a bike and he's your warlord, very easy to run him 20 inches away behind a piece of cover and be like, well, you just can't kill him now because, you know, I don't know many things that can keep up with the 20-inch move, right? Having the second squad of Sangre Guard does indeed limit what you can do with the Death Company, but I think Death Company secondary is good right now. So I'm kind of more okay with I think I'm more okay with like losing some Sangard and running 7. Sorry, and running 4 Death Company. I don't know where I got 7 from. I guess the one question is like why is this Death Company got no jump packs? Because that's not how I would play them. I think I would have jump packs on all of them. And I definitely think I would try and fix the Cherubin. The drop pod is fine. The selection of stuff is irrelevant, really. The company veterans with storm shields. Oh no, sorry, not storm shields. Lightning claws. I mean, if you need to save some points, you can make these guys with double chain swords. That would be fine as well. If you need to save some points, you can probably lose some of the Hurricane Bolters on the assault Centurions. I don't think they need Hurricane Bolters. The Flamers do enough shots to prevent Overwatch, and obviously they can charge and do plenty of damage. What might be interesting and what we don't often see is, have you ever considered master crafting the Sergeant's fist on the Centurion? No one runs it, but like if your Centurions are living a lot and they're getting into combat a lot, you could make his drill damage 4. I mean, that'd be pretty nice. Arguably, though, it might be better to just take Quake Bolts on one of the Centurions. Well, it would have to be the Sergeant, so you'd have to put the Assault Launcher on someone else, because if you can get +1 to hit on the Centurions, they obviously don't have core. Or, yeah, it would have to be like a Centurion Sergeant, probably, that would make the most sense to have Quake Bolts. You don't really have any other Sergeants that could take it, except the Devastator Sergeant, and you want him making a unit +1 to hit. Death Company should always take jump packs if they're not in a transport. Yes, that's why I thought they were maybe going to be in this drop pod. So it's decent in Fury Lost, it's decent in Relentless Assault shock tactics. It's got a little bit of vulnerability against like psychic armies, which I guess is fine. I mean, sometimes you have to have some vulnerability, and it's got a bit of vulnerability against like fight on death / fight last. But I think when you include the big block of Centurions like that, you're kind of saying, like, hey, I know that there's some things that I'm not going to do great against, but I've got a giant squad of Centurions, so the giant squad of Centurions is going to make up for some shortcomings elsewhere, right? 4 characters is okay for Blind Angels. If you get a Xenos Inquisitor and give him Psychic Veil powers, you should be okay. I don't even think you need Psychic Veil. Highland, I'd just hide it behind a wall. A Devastator Sergeant can give +1 to hit and still shoot. Oh, did they change that? You used to have to give up your shooting to do that, right? Did they change that? I thought it used to be that the Sergeant couldn't shoot when he did that. In your shooting phase, each time his unit shoots, it takes the Sergeant to select one model until end of the phase. Explicit. Oh, so could he select himself? So you could have him with Quake Bolts, and he could select himself, so he hits the Quake Bolt on a 2+. You never played 8th? Maybe it was maybe it was the same in 8th. I don't know, man. I'm gonna check actually. Not that that's really has any relevance here whatsoever, but I want to check. Devastators. Oh, it loaded and then it disappeared. What the hell? Ah, it's broken. I can't check. Okay, I feel like it was. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Okay, so... Yeah, I mean, I think one squad of infiltrators is probably fine. I'd rather have another squad of incursors. I think the veterans are just taking up point. Well, I mean, they're just filling out. 2 veterans over making this like a bigger death company. Yeah, okay, the veterans could be useful for like relentless assault. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Good evening, Oddsod. You could choose himself, yeah. Xeno Inquisitor for 70 points is what I'd contemplate. Remember, Psychic Veil significantly reduces charge chance against him too. That's true, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think this list is fine. I like the fact you've got 2 mortal protections, you've got rights of war, you've got the 3 troop choices. I would like one of them to be more offensive. I would love to see jump packs on this death company. I think you should change something and make that happen. And I think the way to make that happen is to lose some of the Hurricane Bolters and maybe lose like one of these Lightning Claws, because you're only going to need like 14 points, maybe 7 guys, and you had 3 already, so you only need 11 points. So is that like these Hurricane Bolters 10 points per model, or are they 5 points per model in the Centurions? I think they're maybe 10. The Centurions don't need more strength 4 firepower, right? Like, they each have 2 flamers. Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd lose one of the. That's what I would do. I'd lose one of the Hurricane Bolters and probably one of the Lightning Claws. Just make that guy double chainsword. So have the Sergeant with a chainsword Lightning Claw and have the second guy just double chainsword. And then get jump packs on this Death Company. And then I'd put the veterans plus the Devastators, or maybe actually lose 2 Hurricane Bolters. Get the Cherub in there as well. So then when the multi-metal lands, you can get 4 shots hitting on 3s. And yeah, I mean the thing Reziel says is true. It's 50-50. If you play an army like Sisters of Battle, you won't be able to drop the Devastator pod in their deployment zone. You just won't. They'll have too many Sisters and stuff around there. If you play something that's not got as big a footprint, maybe you can get a great Devastator squad placement. Sometimes you might just... It's also fine to drop a drop pod onto an objective and have the Devastators pile out and shoot from cover. Oh, my daughter's up. I'll be back 1 second. It's okay, sweetheart. Thanks, Kevin. Alright, I think that's just about everything. Do you think that Chainsaw Death Company are viable, or do they bounce off anything other than chaff? If you run them in big squads, I think they're fine. I mean, don't run them into a friggin', I don't know, Carnifex or Bloodthirster of Corn or something, but if you run them into... I mean, you get weight of... What do you get, 6 chainswords per guy? I mean, if you got 10 of them with, like... I don't know, Chapter Master rerolls or the Banner of the Sangre Ancient, I mean, it's still going to be like 50 odd hits, right? And then even on wounding on 4s, they're still going to have to take like 24 saves. Could put them Assault Doctrine early, so they can... Chainswords can still be -2 in Assault Doctrine. I mean, like, 25 saves at -2. Even big things are going to take damage from that, right? You could do even more if you had some other buff, like Exploding Sixes or something like that, right? I'm getting a lot of errors on YouTube tonight saying that my stream is having problems. So if anyone's having problems, please let me know. And also, please, before you chill out tonight or before you leave the stream, please consider hitting that like button. It does help me out a lot. So thank you for that. All right. I think that's list number 1, Inks. List number 2 is... got any questions, Inks? Since you are here in chat. It's saying your audio stream rate is 0, which is lower than... I mean, 0 would be lower than the recommended amount. Alright. This is Mike's list. Let's read the list first. I'll read his comments afterwards. Oh, it's a patrol detachment. We got Dante, who is the warlord. We got Incursors. We got a Sanguinary Ancient with Soul Warden and Wrath of Baal. Like, 2 good choices, I guess. We've got a Thunderstrike with the standard loadout. I don't think there's any choice on the Thunderstrike. I think... I was going to say maybe you can add like a... What can you add to the Thunderstrike? I actually don't know. Can you add anything? No. You just have the standard loadout, right? Which is the 1 Strength 10 D6, 2 Strength 9 D6, and then I think it's 2 D3 7 -2 -1 2. Okay. So no customization on the Thunderstrike. 2 up ballistic skill on that Thunderstrike. Thank you so much for subscribing, Chris. I do appreciate that. And then you get the Whirlwind with the Castellan launcher. Then we have a Vanguard detachment, which is going to spend 4 CP on. We've got Lamartes with Mantra of Strength and Canticle Hate, and I think I prefer that as the way to run Lamartes. I think, especially if you're ever going to do deep strike charges, because that could really help you with some deep strikes. We have the Sanguinary Priest, who has Rites of War. Seems like a lot of people run this Sanguinary Priest with Rites of War right now. My opinion on the Sanguinary Priest with Rites of War, he's brilliant, but you really need to be on point with where you're positioning him. Like he can be difficult to put down in the right position. Like he gets eaten up so quickly, right? He's just toughness 3 with toughness 3. He feels like he's toughness 3. He's toughness 4 with the 3 up save. Any sort of weapon just carves him up. And typically when you need to save on him, do your 6+ feel no pains, he never makes any of them. So this Sanguinary Priest for me is it's useful, but he's also difficult to play, and opponents will like often kill him out of the they'll often focus on killing him down. Alright, we also got 3 Death Company here, and this is pretty much the same as the last list. 4 hammers, and then 1 with 5 chainswords. I guess I'm going to join this 2 Death Company 4 hammer squad, probably, or something. I'm going to maybe add some more hammers. I've just bought a box of Death Company this weekend, which is crazy considering I have, like, already about 35 Death Company. But, yeah, we're building a Legion of Death Company, I guess. We then have the Sanguinary Guard, and these are 6s with 2 Infernal Pistols ×2 and a 5. Good mix of swords and axes, sorry. Slight weighting of the swords here, which isn't... I think that's the right call. I think you want more swords than axes. Then we have a couple of land speeders. How many lists have we got today? I think we've got 4 for today. I did see you submit a list earlier today, Lamented Sons. I'll get it next Sunday. Okay, so 3 Death Company, 3 Sangard, the Ancient, the Priest, Lamartes, Dante, the 1 troop choice, the Incursors, the Storm Speeder, the Whirlwind, and then a couple of Land Speeders and Multi-Meltas. This is looking very similar to that list that won the tournament, whatever it was called, the US Open, something like that. We're seeing... Yeah, because I think that US Open list was the 3 Death Company, the 3 Sangard, the Whirlwind, the Ancient, Dante, Lamartes. I don't think he had a priest, but I think he had like 3 assault squads. But yeah, this is very similar. He said Litany of Hate's 3-inch consolidation is a secret weapon to sneak in relentless assault points. Sorry, it's +3. Yeah, so it's Litany of Hate consolidation, piloting consolidation is 6 inches, I believe, which is really actually very good when you're charging, especially if you're considering Hammer of Wrath, right? And then he also said, I noticed the modification to my list made this extremely viable for you to play. I believe you'd only need to borrow one land speeder. I have two land speeders, but I don't really want to play three Sandguard, three Death Company, and a Whirlwind in the Sangre Ancient, and I guess one troop choice. I don't love it. I'm not in love with it, and I think into some armies that have a lot of obsec with one troop choice, it feels really bad. And also, I mean, for me personally, like someone put a long comment about my list last week in the GT saying, like, you know, basically something similar to this. Like, this is the list that is the strongest for Blood Angels right now. I tend to not disagree with this in terms of like it being strongest. Do I want to just play this list and not have any of my own flavor and personality in the list? No. So when I'm like, I think it comes down to like I like writing army lists. I like figuring out what's strong myself. But obviously this is winning, or similar to this is doing really well in events. You have a lot of ways to get units into for Relentless Assault. You have like 4 ways of scoring Fury of the Lost, so then you just have 1 secondary to figure out. You could argue that, like, again, an Inquisitor in here would be really useful, because that would open up Psychic as well, and yeah. And it's not so much that I don't enjoy playing at DTM, it's more the fact that, like, I just don't like the fact that, like, it's seen... And it's seen, I guess it's seen on, like, when I first started the channel, a lot of people would come into the channel and tell me that I was an idiot, right, for running like double Redemptor. Like, you know, you should never run, like, it was almost like you just shouldn't run you shouldn't run Dreadnoughts in Blood Angels. Like, what are you thinking? You don't know anything about Blood Angels. And I think if I want to be an ambassador to the channel, then I need to push for more lists to be viable, right? Because what will happen is someone will come into one of the comments and be like, hey, I'm new to Blood Angels and I've got this, and this is all I've bought right now, and I'm getting fragged left, right, and center, and there's nothing I can do. And I think that's the most difficult thing for me, because I'm like, well, yeah, you should have probably not bought any of that stuff you bought. You should have just bought Death Company and Sangre Guard, because that's our 2 viable competitive models. And I guess I'm going to fight tooth and nail for, like, let's never look as our chapter like, hey, this is an army list that, like, anyone that doesn't run this list with 3 Sangard, the Ancient, 3 Death Company, and like Lamartes, for example, anyone that doesn't run that doesn't know what they're doing, and they're never going to win an event, etc, etc, right? But if you just want to be 100% super strong and you don't really, you know, you don't care about the fluff, because, like, I mean, in the fluff, would you get like all 25 Sangre Guard together in one army list? Probably not, right? I guess it's the same as like when, if you go back a few months, I think there was a few, maybe even more than a few months, there was at one point where people were just saying, just run 30 Sangre Guard, right? Like, and then the same thing happens. New people would come in and say, like, I've joined the game, this is the units I've bought, I'm struggling, and like, I don't want to be the guy that's like, yeah, you should have just bought 30 Sangre Guard, right? But that's a conversation for another day. If you want to run a really strong list, then this is right on that track, right? So what did he say? So this is similar to my last list. I found the Whirlwind is doing more than the Scouts and a Land Speeder. Some people swear by the Speeder Storm, that's fine. Relentless Assault is viable for every matchup. Yeah, I mean, especially when you're this mobile, and especially when you've got 2 Land Speeders, you can just advance as well into enemy deployment. Fury of the Lost is obviously a go-to here as well. We've got Lamartis, which helps a lot. 2 Death Company units stay in reserve. With a 5-man Sangre Guard, I don't know if I feel like you need to put that much into reserve. I suppose it depends on how much terrain is on the table, but in a standard map with enough terrain, you shouldn't need to reserve 3 jump units on this list. Lamartis can use Cantle of Hate when the Death Company drop. So they have a 7-inch charge with a reroll. You say it's extremely reliable. It's like an 82% chance. It's a 66% chance to make a charge with a reroll with our Blood Angels one. It's an 82% chance. I mean, if you play an event and you play 5 games and you do it with 1 unit each game. It's going to fail in one of the games. So I don't know if I would say that's extremely reliable. I mean, it's decent. But I mean, I don't know. Extremely reliable for me would be like 95% plus, not 82%. The speeder spam combines so beautifully with the Wrath of Baal, it turns us into surgical scalpels. We literally were able to dictate almost all the engagements in Deep Strike. I would tend to disagree that that lets us dictate engagements against Sisters of Battle. Because the thing about Sisters of Battle is they can guarantee charges out of Deep Strike, and that's kind of huge, right? Because the only way you can counter that is with infiltrators, and arguably your infiltrators aren't going to be in the position that you need them to counter that, right? The infiltrators are going to be in backfield; they're not going to be pushed forward super heavily. So there's that. He said you rocked a gladiator for the community in Highland, and now cast aside actions completely and let show the true might of our angels. Please, please, please showcase this list in a game with Deep Strike. I didn't read that until the very end. He's like, please, please, please run this list, when I've been just saying, like, I'm not going to run this list because I just hate the principle of this list. I mean, I pretty much have everything. Like, I think I could run this list. I maybe don't have 10 death come. I will have these 4 hammers after this box comes, but yeah, that's why I'm not gonna, like, I don't think I would run this to an event period. I also don't like. I don't think it helps against the matchups that we have big trouble with. And yeah, I mean, maybe it just doesn't fit. I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to be objective when it's like people are saying this is the only thing that's competitive. But I mean, if you're just here to look for a really competitive list that you want to run next week and beat some people up, then this is about as competitive as you get. The only weakness, really, I guess, is like, I mean, you have lack of invulnerable saves on this army, but we know that that's the thing that Blood Angels have. We have lack of, like, possibly a bit of problem into fight last, possibly a bit of problem into psychic. But yeah, I mean, there's not much to say. Like, if there's not much you can switch out here. Is the Storm Speeder competitive? I think the Storm Speeder is kind of swingy. I mean, if it was me, honestly, I would either run the one with all the meltas, or I would just run 2 more land speeders so that you're running 4 land speeders. You got 2 detachments here, so you can run 2 of them, right? Death Company Dreads only happen when the dude already in the suit already goes mad. I mean, that's true. We don't see many Death Company Dreads, even though people are leaning into that Death Company secondary, right? I do think that land speeders, having multiple land speeders is better than the storm speeder, because like it just goes with what you're gonna do with relentless assault, right? Because like literally one of those land speeders could be the difference between you scoring 4 points or not scoring 4 points. And if you have to advance them, then you're not losing too much. Whereas I guess if you have to advance your storm speeder, then I guess you're giving up like a lot more firepower, right? Because all its weapons are heavy, yeah. So what's the other Storm Speeder's weapons? I assume they're all heavy as well. What is it? The Hammer Strike? Oh, it's got you could fire its 2 crack grenades if it advanced. But I mean, yeah, so you wouldn't want to be advancing it either. Whereas if you have to advance 1 land speeder, you lose less, I guess. I mean, maybe I could run this list sometime. I think I've got everything. I also just dislike Dante in competitive play. You know that? Some people like him in competitive play. I'm either unlucky with him, or I just don't like the fact that his weapon is 2 damage, and I also don't like the fact that he has no protection against mortals. And to some of the matchups that I played at the current event, like, if they can kill Dante and I don't even get to make an armor save, that's a big problem for me, right? And I guess that's why I like to run a captain, with Soul Warden, because then it's like, even if you do a bunch of mortals, I'm pretend you know, the list I ran last week had like a Sangre Ancient running Wrath of Baal and a captain with Soul Warden, I think, right? And I guess, oh no, I think in the last week it was Lamartez with Soul Warden. But I guess my point is, like, wherever your warlord is, it's probably going to be where you need, um, wherever your warlord is probably going to be where you need Soul Warden, right? Because your warlord's going to be with like a big unit of jump infantry or multiple units of jump infantry. Whereas like once you've had a couple of turns of Wrath of Baal, like I think Wrath of Baal has more strength at the beginning of the game till the end of the game, right? Because at the beginning of the game you need that those extra inches of movement are going to get you in closer much quicker. But usually at the end of the game, like you're already on top of the opponent. You probably 12-inch move is absolutely fine. So for me, it's more likely that the Sangre Ancient would then hang back and just hold an objective. The other cool thing about the Sangre Ancient holding an objective, which none of my other characters can do here, is that, I mean, maybe you guys know this, some of you definitely do. Commander Dante, Lamartez, and the Sangre Priest, none of them can heroic 6, right? The Sangre Ancient can heroic 6 because he has the Sangre Guard keyword. So if, for example, the enemy has like one obsec, so in turn 3, I guess, if he's going to hang back and sit on an objective, if the enemy's going to put one model onto that objective that's an obsec, then at least I have the option of like, hey, I can do a 6-inch heroic and I can definitely get in. There's no way he can be on that objective that I won't be able to heroic him, and hopefully with my, I don't know, 4 or 5 power sword attacks. How many power sword attacks does a Sangre Ancient actually get? Like, I think he's got 3 attacks, right? So you'd probably get 5. Sangre Ancient. Yeah, so you would get 5 if your heroic intervene. So like you can pay to heroic on the Sangre Ancient because he has the Sangre Guard keyword. None of the other characters that we mentioned in this list though can do that, right? So that's why I'd be more tempted to sit him back, right? But I mean, some people like him with Wrath of Baal and Rites of War, like it's done. Oh no, I was going to say some people like, yeah. So there's multiple ways you can use them. You can use them with Soul Ward and Wrath of Baal. You can use them with Rites of War, Wrath of Baal. You can use them like this, like I did last week with just Wrath of Baal, because I feel like Wrath of Baal, like I said, it gives more value early in the game. But I guess that's a few things to consider. It is annoying that Dante doesn't have the ability to do the Sangre Guard heroic intervention, but the Sangre Ancient gets it. I did actually check the keywords. I was like, hold on a minute. So the Sangre Ancient can heroic 6, but Dante can't? But I mean, I guess that's just where our codex lands, I guess, right? I don't know if they actually meant for him to be able to do the heroic, but yeah. Okay, so if it was me, I prefer to run not a Dante character and give Soul Warden around there. But we've seen this do really well. We've seen basically the same list win a GT. I think I prefer this list to the Centurion list, because I think with the Centurions you're just walking across the board hoping that the enemy don't have enough firepower to kill 5 Centurions in a turn. And into some armies, I feel like they will kill 5 Centurions in a turn. So, at least with this list, you're playing sort of standard Blood Angels, jumping from cover to cover. You have a tiny bit of incremental shooting. You have lots of good combat units. So I do prefer this, but I also kind of hate that you've just got one troop choice. So you're starting on like 1 CP. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I don't like about this list is like, you're on 1 CP, you're going to use the Whirlwind like 5 times, probably. You're going to Forlorn Fury. So at that point, like, you've got literally no CP to react in the game. Some people say you don't need CP to react in the game, but I mean, I always like to have 2 CP to interrupt. I think it's super important to some armies. So if you need 2 CP to interrupt, and you're going to suppress something to prevent Overwatch, then I guess that's difficult to do. But yeah, I mean, this is a very competitive list. If you want to actually see a list similar to this, the one that won the GT recently, you just need to go onto the channel, and if you're not familiar with like going onto the YouTube channel, there are playlists on this URL. So just scroll down to competitive army lists. Oh, it's the last video there, so right at the front. And this is 2 lists, one that won a GT, one that won an RTT, right there. You can click on them. Okay. I hate being CP starved. That's one of the reasons that I'm really considering an Inquisitor, because I guess I like to be able to make plays and spend CP. Maybe I'm stuck in Nakmund when you used to get plenty CP. Douglas says, I just run Patrol and Vanguard with a Whirlwind starting on 2 CP, and yeah, I felt like not being able to use strats didn't help. Just being able to run the maximum volumes of our strongest units helped. Well, I mean, I guess that's the trade-off you make, right? You can run more Death Company and more Sangreguard, but you can run less strats. What's better, I actually don't know. Okay. PJ Murray. This is a battalion also starting on 1 CP, 2,000 points. He is using Custom Successor, Tactical Withdrawal, Whirlwind of Rage. Cool. So someone listened to my video a few weeks back. So he can fall back and charge, and he can all 6s burst into additional hits. So slightly different style list. Right, we got 2 company veterans, with the double chainswords. We got the Chapter Master with Soul Warden, Relic Blade. He is the Warlord. Inferno Pistol, Relic Blade. We got a Primaris Chaplain on a bike. We don't see this guy too often. Exoration of Rage, which is actually +1 to wound. And Canticle of Hate. Okay, cool. So he's basically going to just say, like, I'm going to get my +1 to wound back from a Chaplain, but I'm going to be able to fall back and 6s are going to burst additional hits. Interesting. He's made this Chaplain the Master of Sanctity, and he's given him Armor Indomitus. So the Chaplain himself is not going to do that much damage, but he's going to give +1 to wound back to whoever he's near. What lineage did he take? Oh, and Canticle of Hate, so he's making charges easier as well. I guess that makes even more sense as well, because he doesn't have the +1 to charge, right? Because he is using Successor, and he's not Blood Angels. So he's basically picked a Chaplain to bring back the Blood Angels traits, and he's going to get fallback and 6s burst, which is pretty cool. We've got that Rites of War Sangre Priest there. Then we've got 2 squads of Incursors and a squad of Infiltrators. Sort of a standard troop choices. There's not much to say about that. I think I'm going to do some different games, Highland Phoenix. I haven't worked out exactly what we're doing, but I have been planning something different. I've been wanting to. I'm not going to say too much about it yet, but I'm going to be trying to do something new for the channel. I've been discussing it. I've been working on graphics. I've been speaking to some people, so hopefully there's something new in the works. I imagine that the video will be ready. The first of that type of video will be ready next month, but it really just depends. We'll see. Okay. We've got the Death Company with 4 hammers, which makes sense. We always see the Death Company with 4 hammers. We got the Ancient with the Wrath of Baal, so we get the 2 inches additional movement. We've got the 3 squads of Sangard, which mostly swords and axes. I guess Sangard become a little bit weaker, I guess, if there's no +1 to wound, but maybe the Chaplain can make up from that. We've also got Terminators with Thunder Hammers and Lightning Claws, and I think if you don't have the +1 to wound, Lightning Claws are actually a really good choice. And then we've got 3 attack bikes with Multi-Malthus. Okay, so this is an interesting list, actually. No Whirlwind in there. Except Whirlwind of Rage, of course. No actual Whirlwind. So, attack bikes, I kind of feel like you maybe want to lean... I was going to say, he's far away from Fury of the Lost on this one. He's got a couple of units that could do Relentless Assault. It feels more like a more like a straight up fight list. And I think this is possibly what I've been talking about. Like you can build these straight up fight lists, and they are good. The problem with these straight up fight lists are like we don't have particularly great secondaries that are going to synergize with the straight up fight lists. We can, yes, we have Relentless Assault and Shock Tactics has got a lot better. So you can do Shock Tactics here, but then you're going to have to find two really good secondaries on top of Shock Tactics. And I don't know if there's any sitting around that are like really good. I mean, Oath of Moment isn't bad. Like, I'm trying to think what I actually scored in Oath of Moment through. I mean, it says that on average, Oath of Moment should score 8 points. That seems about accurate. It doesn't. I think it's very difficult to score more than like 8. I think it's near impossible to score 10 points on Oath of Moment now. Like, it used to almost be 12 every game. Now I think it's more like 8 or 9 every game. And it does swing down to like 6s or 7s. So you take Relentless Assault or Shock Tactics, because Shock Tactics has got a lot better now. I actually think the average now, because I don't have data for this yet, I actually think Shock Tactics is probably somewhere in between Behind Enemy Lines and Relentless. Shock Tactics is probably good for 9 points a game on average. Probably every game you're gonna flip 2 objectives, maybe 3. In a bunch of my games recently, I've been flipping. I've been capping it. I think against the Votan, I would have scored 20 points on Shock Tactics. So Shock Tactics is really good now. Or yeah, I think it is really good now actually. Maybe there's just a few options where it's not good, like Knights, for example, with all their like counts as models obsec, or Necrons that counts as double obsec. Banners and Nephilim data are so average, it's not funny. And then Assassination and Blade of Sanguinius are also so average these days, it's kind of not funny. So you can't take the Psychic ones. You can't take Fury of the Lost. So while this list is cool, it'll fight. I was going to say, I don't think you really... Maybe you could take Death from Above? I haven't actually really tried Death from Above, but I guess you could put a few things into Death from Above, but like... I think that this sort of list will do fine. I think it will fight, it will trade, but like it's gonna be super hard to score over 90 points with a list like this. Oath is also dependent on whether you go first or second, and you get more points if you go second. Yeah, I mean that's a big problem with Oath at the moment as well. That's one of the other reasons that I hate Abandoned Sanctuaries as a map, DTM, because basically whoever goes second in Abandoned Sanctuaries just gets 5 points at the end of the game for holding the middle, because why would you not run like a single OBSEC unit into the middle and hold it at the end of the game for 5 points? So yeah, these... You could go a lot more wrong than like 3 squads of Sanguinary Guard, a squad of Terminators. It would be nice if they had a Teleport Homer, the 4 Thunderhammers, the Incursors and Infiltrators. The fact that these are all bursting 6s was pretty cool. It's a bit sad that you don't have like a Librarian in here so you could get double 6s bursting. But I don't know if I can be really qualified to say too much on this because I've never played Fall Back and Charge on my Blood Angels. But I do like the fact that you've picked 2 litanies that are going to help improve that. And you got metal bikes and stuff as well. This is a cool list. It's a pity you didn't see any comments with it, PJ. Maybe reply to this video and tell me how you've been getting on with it, and I can answer some of your questions. One of the... There's some honestly hot takes from you by secondary in there, John. Controversial... What's controversial about the secondary pick? Sorry. Highland says, should this flowchart also include some decision boxes of versus secondary opponents? I mean, it could. Yeah, I mean, you could argue Shock Tactics has some weaknesses that we could... The problem with the spreadsheet, though, is like at some point, how complicated does it become? I've actually, like, in one of the versions I updated shock tactics to reckon, because to reckon it gives like 9 points. But like I don't even know where I'd put it in. Like I'm not sure where the question is. Like, is there a question up here, I guess, maybe? That says like, can you flip object do you feel you can flip one objective every turn? Yes, take shock tactics. Um I mean maybe, but I mean this was a what the fuck is this? It's like an art file. It wasn't some sort of magical flowchart maker. I'd have to manually move everything to put it up here. I mean, I could, um, but then you ask the question like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't even like I haven't moved shot like I've put that shot tactics is worth like 9 points per game now, but like I actually don't know how I edit this. Like I don't know where I put it. You know, like will they be breaching ours? No. If yes, are you take? Yeah, I mean, there's maybe another question there. I think probably what will happen is we'll get new secondaries, we'll get new data, and then I'll just need to build the whole thing again. It sounded like on the last Meta Watch article they know Marines are still not super strong. So hopefully some of these. I was going to say the other Marine one. What is it called? It's a pile of crap. Codex Warfare. Maybe we'll finally get an update to Codex Warfare. I don't even think I put Codex Warfare on here because its numbers were so low. Um, I feel like fallback and charge has lost the value for Blood Angels considering how much we rely on killing on the charge to prevent the enemy from swinging back. That's kind of true as well, Turkey. We do Marines with no invulnerable save generally take heavy losses. In every combat that we don't overkill in, I find. Next chapter approved points upgrade and balance status later due by the end of January 2022. 2023. Bloody hell, 2023. Okay. So I don't have much experience playing fallback and charge, but I mean I do like it. But I think secondary wise in this list you're going to struggle. You're just going to struggle to score more than 90 points in every game, and there's too many armies at the moment in the meta which can score like damn near 100 every game. So if you come up against one of those armies, like I just don't know how you win those games. And that's what makes it. That's what makes leaning into the secondaries that we can score really reliably, like Fury of the Lost, more important right now, I think. I guess in some ways that's why people are just saying like Lamartis plus 3 Death Company is core. Alright, this is from Short Round. He says he's been a follower for a few months, so he thought he'd submit a list. He's got Lamartis, who is the Warlord, who's the Soul Warden. He's got Primaris Tetmarine, who has Master of the Forge and Warden of the Ancients. I don't know if I would ever pay the CP for Warden of the Ancients. I believe it just gives you like +1 attack and +1 strength on Dreadnoughts within 6 of the Tetmarine. +1 attack is fine. +1 strength is completely wasted typically because of our chapter tactic, the +1 to wounds. So, because normally I think most of our Dreadnoughts have like, strength 7 times 2 on their fists. So already strength 14 with +1. So do you even need Warden of the Ancient? I think it's a wasted Warlord trait for +1 attack. If you want to put something good on the Tetmarine that's going to buff your Dreadnoughts, put Quake Bolts on him. Because he hits on 2s with his gun, and technically, I mean, he can advance as well, because it's an Assault Forge Bolter, so you can get, like, Quake Bolts at 37 inches away or something. You've got the Priest with Rites of War, okay, which is seen everywhere. Double Assault Intercessor and Cursors. I think that's good. When I see Assault Intercessors, I always kind of wish that the Sergeants would have Power Swords or something like that, but it's so hard to fit the points in, so I understand. You've got 2 Death Company here, and by having Lamartis as your HQ, it really makes me think that you should have that 3rd Death Company, because then you open up that Fury of the Lost. One Death Company is 4 hammers, the other is a bunch of Infernal Pistol power swords, which I've said multiple times on stream that I like it. We've got double Redemptor Cyclones, Chain Fist with a Heavy Flamer, and the Twin Volkite covering. You might be better going for plasmas on I think it's called the Plasma Blaster on the Relic Contemptor, but at the same time you could argue that that keeps the Relic Contemptor a bit cheaper, because you don't necessarily need a Plasma Blaster. You could just have a Heavy Flamer, it gives you some defense against being charged as well. Where's the Contemptor Plasma Blaster is 5 points, the Heavy Flamer is also 5 points. Okay, alright, so maybe you do, well, I mean, I guess it just depends. You might be better off taking the Contemptor Plasma Blaster is Assault 2, either 8 -3 2 damage, or low power 7 -3 1 damage. But double Contemptor is fine, I think. They are useful. On 1 wound, they still fire on full profile. They have an invulnerable save. The Tech Marine's going to keep them alive, make them stick around one or two more turns. Volkite Fire is still good, 45 inches. Cyclones are fine, 36 inches. You do the +1 strength after multiplication in 9th, so the Redemptor goes from strength 14 to 15, which are both meaningless increases. So DTM, yeah, that's why I think Warden of the Ancients is a wasted pick. You're much better off getting Quake Bolts here, because Quake Bolts will help multiple units. If the Dreadnoughts die, then Warden of the Ancient becomes pointless, whereas Quake Bolts will still give value throughout the game. It'll also give great value to, like, Thunderhammers with Death Company or whatever. 2 squads of Sangry Guard, and double Infernal Pistols in one and none in the other. I think that if this was me, I'd honestly remove one of those squads of Sangard and get, like, you can build quite a big Death Company now for 190 points, right? Like, Death Company are like 18 points per model. Adding a jump pack is 3, so it'd be 21. So like 180 points divided by 21 is 8 and change. So you could get like 8 Death Company. You could put a couple of Infernal Pistols in there. Gives you that 3rd unit for Fury of the Lost. Well, 4th unit if you include Lamartas as a unit as well, and he obviously is because he's Death Company. You get 2 assault squads, Infernal Pistols, Power Swords, and then Plasma Pistols, Chain Swords, and on both, I guess. These assault squads can be useful. They can trade with cheap chaff units. They can kill fight on death models. Did I not say Fury of the Lost? Yeah, I think so. And then the Whirlwind. So in this case, I actually kind of like double Contemptor. I think it's strong with a Tech Marine. Again, you're a little bit weaker against Psychic. You're a little bit weak here because you don't have Chapter Master rerolls, and I feel like if you're doing a Forlorn Fury with Death Company, you're just desperate for Chapter Master rerolls. The increase in damage of Chapter Master rerolls is significant. If you think about, like, so 20 Thunderhammers hitting on 4s versus 20 Thunderhammers hitting on 4s rerolling everything, changes it from, without Chapter Master rerolls you make 10 hits, with Chapter Master rerolls you make 15 hits. So if you just look at that, that's a 50% bonus to damage, and that's why I know Chapter Masters are expensive, but that's why they're good. Technically you could drop the Tech Marine here, like, because both your Redemptors, they never get profiled, right? So even if they're on 1 wound, they're still shooting on 3s, I guess. And they're still hitting on 3s in combat. That's the one really good, nice thing about the Relic Contemptors, is that they are less than 10 wounds, so they don't profile. Which is why I think I kind of prefer them to some of those new Storm Speeders as well, right? Because, like, on 1 wound, they still shoot at full strength. They still combat at full strength, which is better than the Redemptors as well. They also have the invulnerable save. They also have -1 damage. They can also use Wisdom of the Ancient. You're right, James. So I feel like it's a little bit sad you don't have Chapter Master. And remember, well, if you aren't going to Forlorn Fury, if there isn't a good Forlorn Fury target, then you can also give Chapter Master rerolls to the Contemptors because they are core as well. So I think my thought in this list is, like, do you desperately need the Tech Marine? Does he bring enough? Would you be better running a chapter master? And would you be better running a third squad of Death Company? I mean, personally, I think I'd probably be better with both of those things. I mean, I have run Tech Marines before. I have run them with double dreadnoughts before. It can do fine. But I think that the meta's moved on a bit. Like when I used to do that, nobody had their codexes. Like when I used to run the double dreadnoughts, it was like a year ago. So it was like maybe a longer than a year ago. And I think there was a point where like the double Volcon Relic Contemptors were really good. But then at some point, like then people just maybe it's a bit like the attack bikes. People figured out how to counter them. And obviously, if you've got double Volkites, they just charge you, and then if they get in combat with you, you can't shoot. So that's why, like, the sort of Chain Fist Cyclone Missile Launcher variant emerged, because you can shoot the crack missiles in combat, you can shoot the Heavy Flamer in combat, arguably you can shoot the Volkite in combat as well, and then you've got the Chain Fist to mop stuff up. Do not drop that second Death Company unit, it's heresy. I mean, I ran one Death Company, sorry, do not drop the second Sangre Guard. I was going to say, I actually ran 2 Sangard this week, didn't I? I just ran 5-man squads. Well, that's the trade-off you have to make, right? Like you either lean into Fury of the Lost and potentially score some more points, or you keep the double Sangard and keep a bit more utility. But I think you can't. The only other way you can change this list is to lose one of the Redemptors, right? If you're going to bring the Tech Marine plus double Dreadnought, I drop Master of Forge, so healing a flat 3 doesn't mean as much on non-profiling vehicles. Oh, I mean, I guess that's true. The other thing I suppose that's true, though, is Redemptors don't have a whole heap of wounds, so flat 3 heal can help a bit. I was going to say, is there any situation where you could drop one of these Dreadnoughts, replace it with some other version of fire support, drop an assault squad, and then have the third one, you know, like Death Company with 5 Chain Swords is only 105 points, so it's 15 points more than an assault squad. So if you could drop the assault squad and drop the Relic Contemptor to put that third Death Company in there and keep those 2 Sangre Guard, then you would have 175 points to spend on fire support. Is there something for 175 points that we can run that brings a lot of fire support? I mean, you could almost run a Gladiator Reaper. You could almost run a Vindicator Laser. I think you would actually run the Vindicator Laser Destroyer. Do Contemptors really offer so much more than a Redemptor, considering they're 1 CP? I think so, James, because if you look at something like Drukhari, or I think the Drukhari one is the most obvious to me. All your AP on your plasma cannon on your main Redemptors are wasted into Drukhari because they all like save it on range on like 5-ups, right? And they have 4-up saves. Whereas like none of your AP is wasted on those. Well, 1 point of AP is wasted on the Cyclones, no AP is wasted on the Volkites. And I think I've had a game before against Drukhari where I had 2 Redemptors. One was Chapter Master rerolls, one was +1 to hit from the Tech Marine, so they're all hitting all the time. And I couldn't even open a single transport, but I think if you had 2 of the Relic Contemptors, I think that probably never happens, because Relic Contemptors would be like, I don't know, it would be like 30 hits, so that would almost do like 6 mortals straight away, and then you'd probably end up with them having to make like 20 saves. So like that would never happen. Or like the 2 Relic Contemptors are like, it's probably like a 1% chance that they fail to blow up like a Drukhari transport, like a Raider. Whereas like 2 Redemptors can actually easily fail that because they have D6 shots, and then most of your AP is wasted. So yeah, relic contemptors are better in some situations. Cyclone missile launchers are expensive, yes. I mean, relic contemptors as a platform in general are expensive as well. But yeah, I mean, I think we've been back and forth about fire support for a while, right? In terms of like, what is the best fire support for Blood Angels? I think if we could answer that question, people would all be running it. I don't think there is a best, but I think that in this list, you're so close to being able to get Fury of the Lost on there. I would go for it. You'd be surprised at how often in games DTM as a Space Marine player you find yourself with a Redemptor Dreadnought only making saves on a 6. I hate making saves on 6s. My luck never really comes in when I have to save on 6s. But yeah, Helverns and Reapers. I mean, you could almost get a Reaper. Oh, how does a Reaper do against Drukhari Transport versus that other one? That would be some maths to run, wouldn't it? I mean, it's got 30 inches, which is nice. Just roll Andrew's dice? Yeah, I mean, I could try that. Andrew is his dice rolls always amaze me. Okay, yeah, so this list, I think we've all critiqued the Tech Marine. We've kind of critiqued the Relic Contemptors, but in reality, I actually think they're kind of okay. Assault squads are fine. Whirlwind is good. Yeah, it feels to me like you want that third Death Company. And I'm fine with the third Death Company just being a chainsword one. Hot take Redemptors with heavy onslaught cannons are the way to go. Are they? I mean, when I did the maths on the heavy onslaught cannons, it really didn't impress me. I mean, I guess that's the same reason that I've been really reluctant to run the Gladiator, because it's got a double heavy onslaught cannon, right? And like, I generally feel like kills nothing. You know, like maybe we could just do a quick. We're finishing the stream a little bit early tonight, so why don't we just do a quick? Why don't we do a quick test, right? Like a Raider just has a 4-up save, toughness 6, and has a 5-up in Vun against ranged attacks, right? So like a twin heavy onslaught cannon into a Raider, 24 shots, hitting 66% of the time, wounding 0.5% of the time, saving on 5s. So like your heavy 24 will do 5 wounds to the Raider. It's got 10 wounds. I mean, I guess so. That's a heavy 24. The Redemptor is half of that. So a Redemptor with a heavy onslaught cannon does 2.7 damage to a Raider. I mean, if we talk about like, if you're playing Drukhari, if you can't open up the Raiders, like if you cannot explode the Raiders in the shooting phase, then you lose the game, right? Because if you charge the Raiders in the shooting phase, if you charge the Raiders and you kill them in combat, 9 times out of 10 they manage to get their models out. Because the Raiders have like, they're kind of giant. It's almost impossible to wrap Raiders with minimum size units, right? Like a 5-man Sangri Guard, even a 7-man Sangri Guard, I don't think you can wrap a Raider. You know, like, I was gonna say, can I get a Raider top-down view? That's not how you spell view. I'm gonna say there's no top-down view of a Raider, is there? Regardless, these things are big, man. I don't like. You probably what's some. You can maybe wrap a Raider with 10 models. Like maybe, but then you really need to be charging it from pretty close, right? Because like your consolidation and your piling needs to get you wrapping it perfectly. You're probably not getting the rapid fire bonus on the Reapers, Bolters. I mean, remember it's toughness 6. So I mean, if you want to do the Bolters into a Raider as well, like you're just 8 shots times point. Like let's just say fuck it, you're within half range, so you can get all 16 shots, right? So 16 hitting on 3s, you're only wounding on 6. So you're only wounding on 5s, and then you're saving on 5s. No, that can't be right. Is it? What did I say? It would be 16 shots, hitting on 3s. Oh, yeah. Wounding on 5. Sorry, that was wrong. Times 0.66. Okay, so if you're in half range, the bolters do 2.2 damage. So if you're at max range, the bolters do a whole 1 damage to it. So yeah, I mean, here's my problem with this idea of Reapers, right? Like, let's say you need 2 Reapers to kill 1 Raider. You're going to spend 360 points to kill a 95 point Raider? I mean, like, that doesn't sound like efficient firepower at all. I guess that's why the Volkites are kind of really good into Raiders, right? Like, so what did we say? Like, assuming all the guns can shoot, right? Both the Volkites and the Tempest Bolters, and we're in half range. Let's just add that together, right? So, like, a Reaper does. So, a Reaper does 7.5 damage to a Raider. And that's assuming that you're able to rapid fire at it, right? 7.5. Remember that, 7.5. The Reaper's 180 points. So if you took the Volkite Contemptor with just, let's just say it's just double Volkite, right? Like what people used to run. So it's 170 points. So it's actually 10 points cheaper. Like how much damage does that actually do against a Raider? I get this is an isolated thing. But like a twin Volkite cannon gives you heavy 8. So you get 16 shots. Times 0.66 times 0.4. No, sorry. Fucked up. 16 times 0.66 times 0.5 for wounding. And then they would save point. Yeah, they would save on 5s as well. Then times 2. So before you do any mortal wounds, you do 7 damage with the twin Volkite, and then you have to factor in the mortals, which would be 16 times 0.66 times 0.166. Okay, and then add that together, plus 1.759. No, that's 1,759. Okay, so yeah, I mean, like, the Volkite does an extra... Well, divide it by 7.5 and it'll actually tell you the percentage. So the Volkite Contemptor is 10 points cheaper. It does 16% more damage. And then it is core. So, like, if you're, you can get rerolls to hit, you can get rerolls to wounds. So arguably, like, a Volkite Contemptor kills at 45 inches, bear in mind. A Volkite Contemptor can if you give it any buff, like any reroll buff, probably hits or wounds, you probably kill the Raider from full health at 45 inches. Whereas, like, at 15 inches, the Contemptor leaves it alive with, like, 2.5 wounds. Yeah, you can shoot it, and you can hope that your shooting will punch through it, but that's the thing, like, sometimes if you only got one infernal pistol in your squads, or you only have one guy within 6 inches, then you're kind of only ever going to make, like, then you're just saying, like, I need this one infernal pistol to pop this transport, and at that point, mathematically speaking, like if you're in a game of Warhammer and you're going to win or lose on if you can pop a transport with an invulnerable save with an infernal pistol, whereas you're gonna have to hit on threes, you're gonna have to wound on threes, and then they're gonna have to fail the save. Like mathematically, that sounds pretty poor, right? Do the maths on a Redemptor with a rocket pod, the underslung Gatling, and Stormbolters. I mean, do you really want to see the math? You really think a Redemptor will do anywhere near that? At this point, just run some attack bikes. You could run attack bikes. Again, attack bikes are really inefficient into raiders. Like I said, raiders have a 5-up invulnerable save, so they lose. You know, if you use that as a benchmark, you lose a lot of AP. And I mean, knights are kind of the same, right? Because knights have a 3-up save, 5-up invulnerable save. Heavy onslaught cannon on Redemptors can be buffed to +1 to hit, +1 to wound. Oh, I mean, I guess because they've got chaplain. I don't really run a chaplain to give +1 to wound. Storm of Fire. We don't see many Blood Angels people run Storm of Fire, obviously. A Redemptor duel about 6.6 damage, not counting the Stormbolters. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt Helverns are good, right? Like, and the thing about Helverns is you can take Hunter of Beasts, which lets you what is it? The Hunter of Beast lets you add +1 to hit when you shoot monsters or vehicles. So basically your Helverns would be on 2s to hit. Strength 7, -2. Again, this is -2 is pretty efficient against those sort of raiders or other knights, right? Because like that instantly puts them on their invulnerable save. Yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, fire support is the end. It's the ongoing question for Blood Angels. There isn't a clear cut winner. Redemptors are fine. Relic Contemptors are fine. Gladiators feel weaker because they don't have core. But I guess at some point we're full out of elite slots, so we have to take something else. The Hunter Helverns will do about 8.8 damage. DTM come into the save with all the maths. Yeah, so the Hunter Helverns are actually even more efficient than the Volkite Contemptors. Volkite Contemptors are really good against 1 wound models as well, though, because they occasionally like just spit out a bunch of mortal wounds, and against Necrons or something where they can't reanimate against mortals, it can be really useful against sisters rocking stuff like those stupid storm shields / armor of contempt. Those mortals can be really useful. If I were going to use any kind of knights, it would be Helverns. Yeah, I mean, Helverns probably because of the shock tactics now being kind of a viable / good secondary. That would make more sense. Hellblasters and Inceptors 100% do need change to just do mortals and not kill themselves. I think if Plasma Inceptors lost the ones to kill themselves and just did a mortal, I think they might be competitive. Where they stand right now, we don't see them in competitive play. Not since we saw them a bit when they were like I think they got 3 nerfs in a row. I want to say they were 45 points per model, then they were 50, then they were 55, then they were 60. Leviathan with Graven Storm Cannon. The problem with Leviathan is like he's not. Storm Cannon lost a lot of its strength. Like it used to be -2 AP and 10 shots, and it's kind of expensive. So the Storm Cannon I don't think is a great choice now. I mean, it did get more range, but I don't know why we just don't see many Leviathans on the board these days. And you could argue Leviathans, we should see them more. But I think the problem with Leviathans is like you kind of want to equip a Leviathan to be a melee powerhouse, right? Like because with the drill on it, it's like it's crazy good, right? But then the problem is, I think it doesn't know what it wants to be. Like you want it maybe in Blood Angels, it doesn't know what it wants to be. Like you want it to have the melee weapon on it, so it's a melee powerhouse. But it possibly makes more sense to have it like with more shooting on it. Anyway, I guess there's a conversation for another day. So that's the end of tonight's show. Was there anything else to say on Supercharged list? No, I don't think so. I think the one thing that I do want to say in general with Blood Angels right now is like I think we need to lean more into the Blood Angels secondaries. I think that means that if you aren't playing like like I said earlier in the stream, you go back 3 months, maybe 6 months actually, everybody was going like, take 30 Sangre Guard. That's the best option right now. I think the best option right now is to take 4 Death Company. I think if you want to be competitive to the highest degree, you probably want 4 Death Company. And I think Lamartez is probably your man. Tycho the Lost, maybe not so much. But Lamartez, yes. So I ran that against Votan this week. Might be something different this week coming, but yeah, if you haven't seen the game against Votan, you can check that out. And that was 4 Death Company. The Gladiators are toughness 8. I mean, that helps a bit into some things, right? For sure. I might run the Gladiators again. I didn't dislike them. I do kind of feel like vehicles are just in a really weird place where, like, because they don't have -1 damage, because they don't have core, they're screaming out to run a Tech Marine, but like for the most part, Blood Angels don't want to be running a Tech Marine. We're kind of forced to run like the Ancient, the Priest, the Chapter Master, Lamartez, so it's like it's really difficult to run a Tech Marine right now. But yeah, I like Dreadnoughts. I think Blood Angels can be successful with Dreadnoughts. I just think that the way that they laid out the Blood Angels secondaries right now makes that very, very difficult. And Death Company Dreadnoughts are too slow to get any sort of play. I don't know why they left all of our special Dreadnoughts with a 6-inch move. I mean, maybe if those Dreadnoughts had like an 8-inch move, I could see them get some play. It seems pretty crazy that like an Armiger gets a 12-inch move, right? Shooting Armiger like a Helvern gets a 12-inch move. A Death Company Dreadnought, which is supposed to be like, I mean, the lore behind the Death Company is he's just charging headlong at Horace as fast as he can go. He moves 6 inches, and there's no way to advance and charge, and there's no way to get like, Helverns have a stratagem called Full Tilt where they can just advance 9, so it's like, yeah, some of our units. Ugh. Anyway, no core. Yeah, good point as well. No core either, because reasons, I guess. But I mean, the one thing you can do if you need to buff these guys is Quake Bolts, right? So at least Quake Bolts doesn't require core, and that's something that I think I would run more if I was running the Centurion list. I would run Quake Bolts to give my Centurions advance and charge, right? No, sorry, not advance and charge. You've got me confused. I would use that to give them +1 to hit. Anyway, that is the end of the show for tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out. Leave me a like if you did enjoy the show. We are going to hopefully have a live game on Wednesday. We'll figure something out, and then hopefully, I mean, my plan for this week's video is to talk about secondaries, to talk about building lists, and to talk about how I think the Death Company are probably the most important thing that you could lean into right now if you want to score heavily. So I didn't do a good job of scoring with Death Company this week, but I still did beat the Votan to keep my record against them at 100%. So maybe I'll get better at playing Death Company, but somebody did actually ask earlier, is the big squad of Death Company with chainswords viable? I think the answer is yes. I think it is viable. I think for the points cost, it comes in at, you don't need to run all 10, you could run 8 or something. An 8 Death Company, bringing like 48 chainsword attacks for like 180 points with jump packs is really kind of decent. And it will kill something, and it will get you Fury of the Lost points, right? So, good night, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed painting your 1,000 Sons of Gold Armor DTM, and thanks for doing some maths there, always helping me out on my streams. I'll catch you guys later this week. By the blood are we made strong. Peace.